So 19. Return and Fall of Richard M. Nixon, Part 3. This is another one of the videos that I've had to redo. When I was checking everything before I posted, this one was a minute and a half long. I don't know where the rest of it went. So I'm redoing this one. Hopefully this will be the last one I have to redo. I went back and looked at the prior video and the next video, and I think I kind of know which hole I need to fill. But sometimes when I do this, I end up backtracking a little bit or duplicating some stuff, but it is what it is. This is also something that's been kind of a work in progress. Anyway, so I left off with video 2. We were talking about the invasion of Cambodia. Yeah. Okay. So let's jump through the slides here a little bit and talk about what happened. So to refresh your memory, Nixon had won the election. One of the things he was talking about was trying to wind down the war in Vietnam. So let's pick up with that. And if I end up duplicating something, sorry about that. But hey, hear it twice might sink in, right? All right. So let's see what's next. All right. So we'll just do all of B, okay, just to be safe. Vietnamization and new initiatives abroad, 1969-1972. One of the things Nixon wants to work on, one of his plans is to pull down the American troop levels in Vietnam and turn over more of the war to the South Vietnamese. This is called Vietnamization, which I don't even think is a real word. But whereas before, like during the Eisenhower and the Kennedy years, initially we were giving the South Vietnamese, they would get like surplus World War II weapons, older tanks, and part of what we do is we start giving them the same equipment our soldiers are getting, the M16 rifles, the F5 fighters, okay, newest, most modern stuff, and we start setting about trying to build a little miniature United States Army, okay. Now the problem is the United States Army is designed to fight the Soviets in Europe, okay. Maybe the South Vietnamese really don't need all of this technology. What they're doing is they're fighting a counterinsurgency war. And so, maybe in retrospect, and this is the opinion of one author whose book I read, right, but that we possibly could have done a better job at building them up by concentrating on certain assets that they particularly needed. Okay? I've also heard that the Vietnamese themselves kind of resented this idea that the Americans were going to turn over the war to them, because in their minds they've been fighting the communists since the 1950s. Now certainly the Americans had carried the brunt of the war from like 65, 66, 67, going into 68. But when they're saying, well, we're going to turn over responsibility to the Vietnamese, some of them are going like, man, we've been fighting these people for 10 years. Okay, so don't give us that. Okay. But Nixon's trying to wind down the war. Okay. Now, I may have discussed this, but Henry Kissinger is going over to Paris, engaging in peace talks with the communists, trying to see if they can find some way out of this mess. Okay. Now Kissinger later will be Secretary of State, but that's later. Right now he's like a national security advisor. He's high enough up the food chain that he has Nixon's ear, but he's a low enough ranking person that he can slip out of town and without the reporters noting. Because if I recall, he was doing some of this kind of like under the table without people necessarily knowing that he was part of this. Okay, but slowly but surely, Nixon's pulling down the troop levels. Okay, but then what will happen is in 1970 he authorizes an invasion of neighboring Cambodia. So we have a map here for that. Okay, protest. You'll read about this in the book. There's the map I'm looking for. Okay. So the green is Vietnam, right? It's not labeled Cambodia and Laos, but the two countries over to the left are Cambodia and Laos. And what's happened all through the war, the North Vietnamese are funneling aid and supplies and manpower through these neutral countries down what we call the Ho Chi Minh Trail, which you see there's a picture there of, I guess, the Ho Chi Minh Trail, people bringing stuff down on bicycles. So the communists are violating the neutrality of Laos and Cambodia, but these are both very weak countries, and we really can't stop them. Right? Now, the problem is we really can't stop this either, because if we go into Cambodia or Laos, then we're you know invading a sovereign country. So officially, this kind of off limits. Now, unofficially, some things were being done. There were efforts, like by the CIA, okay, and special operations would try to sneak into uh, these other areas, but they're kind of doing it surreptitiously, okay, trying to interdict some of these supplies. Okay, now the other problem with this is more and more we're actually fighting actual North Vietnamese Army regulars instead of the Viet Cong. There'd be cases where like American troops became engaged with the enemy, and they would get away, they would cross the border into Cambodia, and then kind of turn and look at us, we're in Cambodia, you can't touch us, we're in a neutral country, which is just militarily ridiculous. So Nixon, even though he's planning on trying to wind down the war, he's also wanting to show the communists that he means business. Okay, we're trying to get these peace talks going, and so he will authorize the army to go into Cambodia. Okay, so they go into Cambodia. It's supposed to be a limited time operation. We're not trying to invade Cambodia, but we'll cross the border. Try to destroy supplies, break up base camps, capture headquarters. Basically, just throw a big monkey wrench in the communist infrastructure. Now, militarily, this makes perfect sense, and they probably should have done it in 1965. If you're going to fight war, you really can't let the enemy have a safe haven right across the border. Okay, so militarily, this makes really good sense. Okay, but politically, this turns into a big problem. Because to a lot of people, especially people who are sour on the war, it looks like Nixon's expanding the war. He got elected partially on winding down the war, as he said he would do, and now he's actually expanding it to another country. To a lot of people, you know, uh, he's being super aggressive. All right, so this will trigger all kinds of protests in the United States. Now, there's some other factors going into this too, involving draft and stuff like that. But I'm trying to give you the condensed version, and a lot of this is in the book too, I'm sure. The most famous of these uh, protests is at Kent State. Okay. This is where I think the video was screwing up on me, so I went in and I deleted a whole bunch of stuff, and just kind of condensed it down to a couple of photos. And I took out all the photos for Jackson State. I'll mention that in a minute. But the famous event at Kent State is in May of 1970. Okay? Now, there were Kent State is in Ohio. You can remember this because there's a Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young song called Ohio that sings about this. Okay? There was protest on the college campus. We're fairly certain that there were outside influences. People who weren't actually students there were coming in to try to gin up these various protests. Okay, authorities have heard about this. They're worried. They've got everybody like on heightened state of alert. Well, and then the ROTC building is burned down. So there's been arson committed. All right, so the National Guard's called in to maintain order and stop this. It's approaching a riot stage in some ways. So the peaceful protest? Well, yeah, sure, probably most of the people are peaceful protests, but yet somebody has burned down a building. Okay, there's all kinds of rumors about other things going on. So the National Guard is on the scene for a reason. Okay, now something goes tragically, horribly wrong, and I don't know that we've ever figured out exactly what triggered this. There's different stories depending who you talk to. Okay, but at some point the National Guard opens fire. Okay. 4 people were killed. Some other people were wounded. Okay, this famous photo on the right, this won the Pulitzer Prize. Okay, all right, and this poor guy, he's just walking across the campus. I'm going to class or the dorm or something, and he catches a bullet, and now he's dead. Okay, this is very upsetting. All right, now I'm not justifying this in any way or making light of it, but like the girl who's screaming there, who's horrified, of course, by what's happened. She's not a student at Kent State, okay? She's like a 14-year-old runaway. And I looked it up on Wiki just before we did this. Okay? which kind of reinforces, there are outside forces coming in, agitating, okay, stirring things up. And this is what I've warned you about. Okay, mobs can turn dangerous really fast. I'm not saying this mob was dangerous, but I mean, the National Guard was there for a reason. Okay, they just didn't send them out to shoot some college students. Okay, they were there to try to maintain order, but something went horribly, horribly wrong. Right? And people aren't happy about this, as you can imagine. Okay? But it's a little more complex than just the government decided to shoot some people. And that's but that is what happened. I like to compare this sometimes to the Boston Massacre. Okay, scared soldiers, they've got guns. There's been some violence, people are throwing things, and something goes terribly wrong. Okay. Now, did a National Guardsman maybe say, I've had enough of these hippies, I think I'll just shoot me one? I mean, I don't know, I wasn't there, okay, but it's a very tragic event, okay, and it upsets a lot of people, okay, for good reason, right? Jackson State, I cut the photos out on this because I was trying to figure out why this thing was jamming up on me. Jackson State was a similar situation. It's in Jackson, Mississippi. It's a historically black college, and I don't know if it was necessarily a war protest. It might have been a civil rights type protest, but there was a protest going on. Police opened fire on a dormitory. Some people are killed. It's another one of these tragic things. Okay, that's a lot of people are looking at it going, man, what's going on here in the United States? Okay. Meanwhile, Nixon's still trying to find a way to get this war, wound down. Okay, I tacked on this little slide here at the end because there was another slide when I stopped talking. I'm afraid I may have left a gap somewhere, so I'm going to stick this up and tack it on the end of the video. But I figured if I didn't narrate it, then it wouldn't transfer over to the recording, and it would just run for Lord knows how long. So anyway, sorry that this is a little disjointed here. This scene from video 2 to video 4 is kind of buggered up, but I think I got everything in there, and the outline will guide your readings, of course. And be sure to check the reading sheet that I put up on Canvas under Files. It tells you what textbook chapters you need to be looking at. Alright, so I want to try to get this Nixon thing wrapped up where I can post it up on YouTube for next week. So, alright.